The Christmas Eve dinner at my parents' estate in Connecticut was exactly as insufferable as I'd anticipated. Crystal chandeliers cast expensive light over a table set with china that cost more than most people's cars. My family sat around it like a board of directors evaluating quarterly performance, except the only thing being evaluated was me. "So Rachel," my Aunt Patricia began, swirling her third glass of wine. "Still writing those little news stories?" I set down my fork carefully. "I'm still in journalism, yes." The table erupted in knowing laughter. My cousin Brandon, who worked at my uncle's hedge fund, smirked from across the table. "Journalism? God, that's still a thing? I thought the internet killed that industry years ago." "The industry has evolved," I said evenly. "Evolved into irrelevance," my father added, cutting into his prime rib with the precision of a man who'd spent 40 years making corporate enemies. "Nobody reads news anymore. It's all social media and influencers now. When are you going to accept that you picked a dying field?" My mother patted my hand sympathetically, which somehow felt worse than the criticism. "We just worry about you, darling. You're 34. Still renting that little apartment in the city. No husband, no children. And now this career that's going nowhere." "My career is fine, Mom." "Fine," my sister Victoria scoffed. She was 2 years younger and worked in luxury real estate, selling penthouses to the kind of people who appeared in the society pages she assumed I'd never make it into. "Fine is what people say when they're settling. I closed a $20 million sale last week. Brandon's fund just raised $3 billion in new capital. Cousin James is launching his third startup. What have you done this year besides write articles nobody reads?" "I've been working on a project." "A project?" Uncle Richard repeated, his tone dripping with condescension. He ran a private equity firm that had made him obscenely wealthy and insufferably arrogant. "Let me guess. Some investigative piece about corporate malfeasance that will get a few thousand clicks and change absolutely nothing?" "Something like that. That's the problem with journalists," he continued, warming to his favorite subject. "You people think you're changing the world with your little exposés, but you're really just entertainment for people who want to feel morally superior while doing nothing. Meanwhile, people like me actually build things, create value, make real impact." "Speaking of impact," Aunt Patricia interjected, "did you hear about the Morrison merger? $8.5 billion. Can you even imagine that kind of money, Rachel? That's real power. That's real influence. Not whatever tiny salary you're making at that news blog." "I don't work for a blog. Website, blog, whatever," she waved dismissively. "It's all the same. Digital nonsense that will be forgotten in a week." My cousin Sarah, who'd married into tech money and never let anyone forget it, leaned forward. "Honestly, Rachel, have you ever considered transitioning into something more sustainable? My husband's company is always looking for people who can write marketing copy. It pays well. Much better than journalism, I'm sure." "I'm not interested in marketing copy." "Of course not," my father said heavily. "That would require pragmatism. You'd rather cling to some romantic notion of journalism mattering while the world moves on without you." "The world hasn't moved on from journalism. The revenue numbers say otherwise," Brandon chimed in. He loved talking about numbers, especially when they proved his point. "Traditional media companies are hemorrhaging money. Newspapers are dying. Even the big networks are struggling. Your entire industry is circling the drain." "Some companies are struggling," I acknowledged. "Others are adapting." "By adapting, you mean getting bought out by tech companies or going bankrupt," Uncle Richard said. "Face it, Rachel. You've spent your entire career in a field that's becoming obsolete. The smart money got out years ago." "I'm not looking to follow the smart money." "Obviously," Victoria muttered. "You're still renting." My mother sighed. "We bought Victoria her condo, as a gift for making partner at her firm. We'd happily do the same for you, Rachel, if you'd just settle down, find a nice man. Maybe consider a more stable career." "I have a stable career." "Darling, be realistic," my father said. "You're a writer at a news organization that probably pays you, what, $60,000 a year? Maybe 70 if you're lucky? That's barely enough to live on in New York. Meanwhile, your sister is making 6 figures, your cousins are making 7. Even your younger brother is out-earning you, and he just graduated business school." My brother Marcus grinned from his seat beside Victoria. At 26, he just accepted a position at Goldman Sachs and couldn't stop talking about his signing bonus. No offense, Rach, but yeah. My starting salary is probably double what you're making after a decade in journalism. Maybe it's time to admit you made the wrong career choice. I didn't make the wrong choice. Then why are you still struggling? Aunt Patricia asked, and she actually sounded curious rather than cruel. If journalism is such a viable career, why aren't you successful? Where are your accolades? Your promotions? Your big scoops that change everything? Some work takes time. Time, Uncle Richard laughed. That's what unsuccessful people say when they're afraid to admit they've failed. You've had time, Rachel. You've had over a decade. What do you have to show for it? I could have told them. I could have explained that I'd spent the last 18 months orchestrating the largest media acquisition in modern history. That I'd been working under an NDA so ironclad that even my lawyer had to sign a separate NDA just to review it. That the little news stories I'd been writing were actually strategic pieces designed to shift public perception and market positioning ahead of the announcement. I could have mentioned that the name on the acquisition paperwork wasn't Rachel Chin, struggling journalist. It was R.C. Morrison, the pseudonymous founder and CEO of Morrison Media Group, a company that had quietly built a portfolio of digital properties, international news bureaus and content platforms over the past 8 years. I could have told them that the $8.5 billion acquisition Aunt Patricia mentioned wasn't just something I'd heard about. It was something I'd executed. But I didn't. I never did. I have my work, I said simply. That's enough for me. It shouldn't be, my mother said sadly. You're wasting your life, darling. You're wasting your potential. Your mother's right, my father added. You were top of your class at Columbia. You could have gone into law, finance, consulting, any field where your intelligence would actually translate into success. Instead, you chose journalism. Why? Because I believe in it. The table went quiet for a moment and then they laughed. Not cruel laughter exactly. More like the indulgent chuckling of adults watching a child insist that Santa Claus is real. You believe in it, Brandon repeated. That's adorable. Really. But belief doesn't pay the bills. Belief doesn't build wealth, Uncle Richard agreed. Belief doesn't get you into the circles that matter, Victoria added. Belief doesn't attract a quality husband, Aunt Patricia finished. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I ignored it. That's probably your editor, Marcus joked. Calling on Christmas Eve because some minor story broke and they need someone desperate enough to work on a holiday. Another buzz. Then another. You're very popular tonight, my cousin Sarah observed. Or is your phone always this busy? It's just work. On Christmas Eve, my father said with disgust. This is exactly what I mean. They exploit you because you let them. They pay you nothing and demand everything and you just accept it because of some naive belief in journalism. My phone was buzzing continuously now. I pulled it out of my clutch intending to silence it. 7 missed calls from my CFO. 4 from my head of PR. 11 from my legal team. 3 from my head of strategic communications. And 1 text from James Rothschild, the CEO of the network consortium we just acquired. It's out. Wall Street Journal broke early. Call me immediately. My stomach tightened but my face remained neutral. Excuse me, I said quietly, standing. I need to take this. Of course you do, Victoria sighed. The dedicated journalist always on call. Probably some emergency about a typo in tomorrow's edition, Brandon said, and they all laughed again. I walked out to the foyer, my heels clicking on marble floors that had echoed with my family's disdain for as long as I could remember. I dialed Rothschild. Rachel, he answered immediately. The Wall Street Journal published early. The acquisition is public. How bad is the leak? It's not a leak. Our official announcement was scheduled for December 26th. They ran it tonight but everything is accurate. Your name is on it. R.C. Morrison is public knowledge now. I closed my eyes. Send me the article. Already in your email. But Rachel, you should know, it's above the fold. Main headline. Mystery media mogul R.C. Morrison revealed as Rachel Chin, 34, in stunning $8.5 billion network acquisition. They have everything. Your background, your history, your Columbia degree. They connected all the dots. How? Someone on the regulatory filing team got sloppy. Doesn't matter now. The story is out. Bloomberg picked it up 10 minutes ago. Reuters just went live. CNN is running a breaking news banner. Your face is going to be on every financial news program by midnight. What's the market reaction? Our stock is up 14% in after-hours trading. The network consortium's stock is up 22%. Investors are calling it the most brilliant media play in a decade. Everyone wants to know how you pulled it off. What about internal? The newsrooms are thrilled. Staff retention concerns just evaporated. Everyone wants to work for the mysterious mogul who saved journalism. PR is drafting statements. Legal is handling the regulatory notifications. Everything is proceeding according to plan. Just 8 hours ahead of schedule. 8 hours on Christmas Eve, he corrected. Which means you're trending on social media. The narrative is already being written. Young woman secretly builds media empire while family thinks she's a struggling journalist. It's a hell of a story, Rachel. It's my life, not a story. Well, it's both now. You need to make a statement. I'll handle it. Your family is going to see this. If they haven't already. I know. Do you want me to send the PR team to help manage? I said I'll handle it. I ended the call and opened my email. The Wall Street Journal article was there, complete with a photo they must have gotten from my Columbia graduation. The headline was exactly as Rothschild described. The article detailed everything. How I'd founded Morrison Media Group at age 26 using a modest inheritance from my grandmother, the only family member who'd ever believed in me. How I'd published under a pseudonym to avoid the scrutiny and sexism that plagued young women in media. How I'd quietly acquired struggling digital properties, revitalized them with quality journalism and innovative business models, and built them into profitable ventures. How I'd spent 18 months negotiating the acquisition of a major network consortium, outmaneuvering tech giants and traditional media conglomerates to secure the deal. How I'd structured the financing through a combination of strategic investors, media partnerships, and my own capital. How I'd planned to revolutionize the network's approach to journalism while maintaining editorial independence. The article called it the most significant media acquisition since Jeff Bezos bought The Washington Post. It compared me to Katharine Graham and Arianna Huffington. It described my vision for the future of journalism in glowing terms. And it included my family's address in Connecticut. I heard footsteps behind me. My mother appeared in the foyer, her face pale. Rachel, she whispered. Your father just got a call from one of his colleagues. Something about you on the news. Something about billions of dollars. He said it must be a mistake, someone with the same name, but... It's not a mistake, Mom. She stared at me. What? The acquisition is real. The company is mine. The story is accurate. You bought a television network? I bought a consortium of 3 networks, actually, plus their digital properties, international bureaus, and content partnerships. For $8 billion? $8.5 billion. The article was rounding down. My father appeared, his phone in his hand, his face red. Rachel, what the hell is going on? Richard just texted me a Bloomberg article with your name on it. Something about you being a CEO? I am a CEO. I have been for 8 years. 8 years, he repeated slowly. You've been running a company for 8 years and never mentioned it? I've been building a media empire while you all assumed I was a failure. Yes. Victoria emerged from the dining room, her own phone glowing in her hand. This can't be real. You can't be R.C. Morrison. That person is a genius. Billionaire. You're just a news writer? I finished quietly. That's what Aunt Patricia called me about an hour ago. More family members poured into the foyer now, all clutching phones, all wearing expressions of shock. Uncle Richard's face had gone from red to purple. Brandon looked like someone had hit him with a brick. You're R.C. Morrison, Uncle Richard said, his voice strangled. The R.C. Morrison who's been acquiring media properties across 3 continents? Yes. The one who turned around the Tribune network in 18 months? 22 months actually, but yes. The one whose worth, he consulted his phone, according to Forbes, north of $3 billion? Forbes is estimating based on partial information. The actual number is higher. Silence. Complete total silence. My cousin Sarah broke it first, her voice small. You let us mock you. For years. You sat there and let us talk about your failed career while you were secretly a billionaire. I wasn't secretly anything. I was working. You all just assumed that because I didn't brag about it, there was nothing to brag about. You could have told us, my mother said, tears in her eyes. You could have said something. Anything. Why? So you could take credit? So you could tell your friends that your daughter was successful? You spent years telling me I was a disappointment. That I'd made wrong choices. That I was wasting my life. Why would I share my success with people who never believed in me? We're your family, my father said, but his voice had lost its authority. You treated me like a failure. Every holiday, every family gathering, every phone call. You compared me to Victoria, to Brandon, to Marcus. You found me lacking. You pitted me. We didn't understand, Victoria whispered. You didn't try to understand. You assumed. You judged. You mocked. Aunt Patricia had gone very quiet. The dinner conversation, she said slowly. When I asked about the Morrison merger. You done it. And you sat there and let me patronize you about real power and real influence. You were explaining my own acquisition to me. It seemed educational to hear your perspective. This is insane, Brandon said, running his hands through his hair. You've been sitting on a $3 billion fortune and living in a rental apartment? I like my apartment. It's close to my office. Your office, Marcus repeated. Where is your office? I have several. Primary headquarters is in Manhattan. International offices in London, Singapore, and Sao Paulo. The network consortium headquarters is in Los Angeles, but I'll be spending more time there now that the acquisition is public. $3 billion, Uncle Richard said again as if he couldn't quite process it. You're worth more than my entire fund. $4.2 billion actually after tonight's stock movement. Your fund is worth about $2.8 billion according to the last valuation I saw. So yes, I'm worth more. He looked like he might be sick. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked again. Why did you let us think you were struggling? I wasn't struggling. You assumed I was struggling because I didn't live the way you expected me to. I didn't buy a mansion or drive a luxury car or marry rich. I invested in my company. My vision. In the work. But we could have helped, she insisted. We could have supported you. We could have. You could have believed in me, I interrupted. You could have respected my choices. You could have trusted that I knew what I was doing. But you didn't. You spent a decade assuming I was a failure because I didn't succeed on your terms. My phone was ringing again. I glanced at it. My head of communications. I need to take this. I have a company to run and a media storm to manage. Rachel, wait, my father said. We need to talk about this. We need to understand what happens now. Now I go back to work. I've got 3 networks to restructure, 2,000 employees counting on me, and a vision for the future of journalism to implement. What you do now is up to you. You can't just leave, Victoria protested. This is huge. This changes everything. It doesn't change anything for me. I'm the same person I was an hour ago. You're the ones who are different now. You're the ones whose perception has shifted. Of course our perception has shifted, Uncle Richard snapped, some of his old arrogance returning. We thought you were nobody. Turns out you're one of the most powerful people in media. That's a significant update. And there it is, I said quietly. When you thought I was nobody, I wasn't worth respecting. Now that you know I'm powerful, suddenly I matter. That tells me everything I need to know about this family. That's not fair, my mother said. Isn't it? Aunt Patricia literally said that journalism was dead and I was writing little news stories that nobody reads. Now she knows I own 3 major networks and she's what, impressed? Should I be grateful for her approval now that it's based on my bank account instead of my character? You're being cruel, my sister said. I'm being honest. Something this family has never been good at. I answered my phone. Chin. Rachel, it's Amanda, my head of communications said urgently. We need a statement. The networks want interviews. CNN, Bloomberg, CNBC, everyone. They want you live tomorrow morning. I'll do one statement. Written. No interviews until after New Year's. They're going to push back hard. Let them. I've spent 8 years building this company in private. They can wait 1 more week for me to talk about it publicly. What about the narrative? Everyone's running different angles. Some are focused on your age, some on your gender, some on the pseudonym, some on the family angle. The family angle? Someone already pulled property records for your parents' address. They know you were at a family Christmas party when the story broke. The optics of the struggling journalist secretly being a billionaire while her wealthy family condescends to her it's a very compelling narrative. I looked at my family, still frozen in the foyer, all staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to confusion to calculation. The family angle is off limits, I said firmly. Make that clear to everyone. My family is not part of this story. Rachel, with respect, they made themselves part of the story the moment they... Amanda. The family is off limits. I'll give one statement about the acquisition, my vision for the networks and my plans moving forward. Nothing personal. Nothing about my background beyond what's already public. And definitely nothing about my family. Understood. I'll draft something and send it within the hour. Make it 30 minutes. I want this controlled before the morning shows start building their own narratives. I ended the call and looked at my family again. You're protecting us, my father said slowly. After everything we said tonight, you're keeping us out of the media narrative. I'm protecting my company. A messy family drama doesn't serve the mission. What is the mission? Marcus asked. He sounded genuinely curious. To prove that quality journalism can be profitable. That integrity and innovation can coexist. That the written word still matters in a digital age. That stories can change the world if they're told right. That's what you've been doing all along, my mother said softly. That's what you meant when you said you believed in it. Yes. We should have believed in you, she whispered. Yes, you should have. Another silence fell, this one heavier than the last. Uncle Richard cleared his throat. I owe you an apology. What I said at dinner about journalists not creating real value, about your industry being obsolete. You meant it, I said. Don't apologize for meaning it. Just recognize that you were wrong. I was wrong, he admitted. Spectacularly wrong. We all were, Victoria added. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry for how I treated you. For how we all treated you. Sorry doesn't erase a decade of condescension. No, my father agreed. It doesn't. But maybe it's a start. I studied him. This man who'd questioned every choice I'd made. Who'd compared me to my siblings and found me wanting. Who'd assumed I was a failure because I didn't chase his definition of success. Maybe, I said finally. But things are different now. I'm not the family disappointment anymore. I'm not the one who needs your advice or your pity or your concern. I'm the one with 3 networks to run and 2,000 employees counting on me. I'm the one who gets to define success on my own terms. We understand, my mother said. Do you? Because an hour ago you were offering to buy me a condo if I'd just settle down and get a real job. Now you know I could buy this entire estate in cash and not notice the money. Does that change how you see me? Or does it just change how you see my value? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. I walked toward the door, pulling my coat from the closet. You're leaving? Brandon asked. It's Christmas Eve. I have work to do. A statement to approve. A company to manage. A media empire to run. Will you come back? My mother asked quietly. For Christmas Day? I paused at the door. I don't know, Mom. I've spent a decade coming to these gatherings and being made to feel small. Being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't living right. Do you know how exhausting that is? We didn't mean. You did mean it. That's the problem. You meant every word. You believed I was a failure. You pitted me. And now that you know the truth, you want me to pretend none of that matters. We want a chance to make it right, my father said. You had chances. Every time I tried to talk about my work and you dismissed it. Every time I said I was happy and you told me I was settling. Every time I asked you to trust me and you assumed you knew better. We were wrong, Victoria said. We were so wrong. Please, Rachel. Don't shut us out. I looked at my sister. At this woman who'd spent years positioning herself as the successful one, the practical one, the one who'd made smart choices. Who'd sold penthouses and felt superior to my journalism career. I'm not shutting you out, I said finally. But I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I'm not going to make you comfortable with your own behavior. You spent years making assumptions about my life. Now you get to live with the reality. Which is? Uncle Richard asked. That the person you all pitted is now the most powerful media executive in the room. That the career you mocked is now shaping national conversations. That the choices you question built something that will outlast all of your hedge funds and real estate deals and corporate positions. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right. I know I am. I've always known I was right. I just stopped needing you to know it too. I opened the door. Cold December air rushed in, carrying the scent of snow and possibility. Rachel, my mother called. Please. Just tell us one thing. What? Are you happy? With everything you've built, everything you've accomplished. Are you happy? I considered the question. Thought about my company, my vision, my work. Thought about the 2,000 journalists who'd just gained job security because of my acquisition. Thought about the stories that would be told, the truths that would be uncovered, the difference that quality journalism could make. Yes, I said simply. I'm happy. I'm exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. The only thing that would have made it better is if my family had believed in me along the way. We believe in you now, my father said. Now that you have proof. Now that the evidence is undeniable. Now that my success is public and verified and impossible to dismiss. That's not belief, Dad. That's just acceptance of facts. I walked out into the cold Connecticut night, leaving my family standing in the warm glow of their expensive foyer. My phone was already ringing again. Investors, board members, journalists, all wanting a piece of the story. But the real story wasn't about the acquisition or the money or the power. The real story was simpler than that. I'd spent a decade building something that mattered while the people who should have supported me assumed I was failing. I'd proved them wrong without ever needing their validation. And now, walking away from their shock and their apologies and their sudden respect, I felt lighter than I had in years. Epilogue. The official announcement went out at midnight. My statement was brief, professional, and focused entirely on the vision for the newly acquired networks. I didn't mention my family. I didn't mention the years of doubt or dismissal. I just talked about journalism, integrity, and the future. By morning, I was on the cover of every major business publication. The mystery mogul revolutionizing media. Rachel Chen's brilliant gambit. How one woman saved journalism while everyone thought she was failing. My mother called 17 times. I didn't answer. My father sent an email titled, "We need to talk." I archived it. Victoria left a voicemail saying she was proud of me. I deleted it without listening all the way through. But my grandmother's voice, the one I kept in my head from all those years ago when she'd given me that inheritance and told me to do something that mattered, that voice was loud and clear. Show them what belief looks like, she'd said. Show them that success isn't about their approval. I'd shown them. And it felt perfect. 6 months later, the networks I'd acquired were profitable for the first time in 4 years. 18 months after that, we won our first Pulitzer for investigative journalism. My family eventually accepted that I wasn't going to pretend Christmas Eve never happened. We had a tentative relationship now. Polite, professional, distant. They'd learned to respect my work. I'd learned that some wounds don't heal just because the facts change. But none of that mattered as much as the work itself. Because while my family had been laughing at my little news stories, I'd been building something that would outlast all of their assumptions. And that, in the end, was the best revenge of all.